So in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create the damage system for the enemy and the fire hazard. The first thing you have to do is find the blueprints for your enemy, so the blueprint actor. Make sure you double click it so that we can edit the blueprints within it. So double click and it will take you to the event graph straight away. Make sure you go to the viewport and you click the enemy static mesh component, and that you go to the details first and scroll down to collision, and that generate overlap events is ticked, and that the collision presets is on overlap all. So make sure collision presets is overlap all and generate overlap events is ticked. Once that's done, compile and save and move back to the event graph, and then find an empty space to work in. We've got the enemy movement which we want to leave alone. You should have an event actor begin overlap already in your blueprints, but if you don't, just create one. Move that closer to the area you want to work in, and we're going to create the blueprints that allows the enemy to damage us. So the first thing is to drag off and to cast the event actor begin overlap to our first person character. So my character is a first person character, yours could be a default character, whatever you've created. And we're gonna make sure that other actors and objects are incorporated so that this doesn't damage other actors other than us. And then we need to create from the cast to first person character, we need to drag off and create a apply damage node. So this function will help us apply damage or get the enemy to apply damage, and we want to make sure that the as first person character is the damaged actor, and we want to give the base damage as a maybe 0.2, so it's gradual. Okay, so you should have that. Compile it and save it, and then all our work here is done in the my enemy blueprints. Close it. The next thing we need to do is to do the same thing to enable the fire to give us damage, but it's going to be slightly different because it's not within the character or the object itself, it's the area around it. So this could be fires, it could be radiated objects or areas, whatever you decide. So you need to go to volumes and you need to drag in a pain causing volume and put it over the area of the fire. That's already a good size for me, so I'm going to leave it at that size. And the name, I'm just going to refer it to the fire in case we have any other objects that can damage the area. And over here are the details. You can add the collision or resize the brush, but we want to just go to the pain causing volume, and the damage per second should be gradual, so it's not an instant kill. and I'm gonna do 0.2. Okay, so both the enemy and the fire can damage us now, but there is one problem. If I press play, we are not going to receive damage and we are going to live because we don't have a health system or a life in terms of the blueprints calculations in the game. So we need to get that set up now. And where the blueprints lives for that is inside the character itself. So my character or first person character, that's where we need to go. We're going to click it, make sure it's the right place to go, and then we're going to double click it, and we are going to find an area to work in, over probably around here. That's good. Ignore all the other blueprints, they serve other purposes, do not disturb them. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to create a variable over here. So press the plus sign to create a variable, and you're going to call this health, and you're going to press enter, and when you have it selected, notice that in the details area you can see the name, but right now it's a boolean and you need to create a float, and a float is this green color here. So we have a float and we need to get a default value, but it won't turn up unless you compile it first. Compile, save, and notice that the default value is now available. We're going to make that 1. So make sure it's called health, make sure that it is a float, which is a decimal number. Make sure you put 1 as the overall the highest number you can have, and if it doesn't show up you need to compile and save it. After you've made changes, compile and save as well. Now that's part of the blueprints. The next thing we need to do is the actual blueprints over here in the event graph. Make sure you're in the event graph area, and then we are going to add all the blueprints necessary. The first blueprint I would like you to add is an any damage blueprint event. So I'm going to type in event any. I'm going to spell it correctly first. Event any damage. This is going to be a long blueprint code, so please pause it, take your time, do your work, follow what's on the video, and then pause it, yeah, if you get too lost. And the any damage we want is, I don't want it continuous, so I want it to be done once in intervals. So we're going to add a do once flow control, and then we have our health variable. We're going to add a get, which is a reference to this, and then we are going to also set the health variable here, and we're going to connect it up this way, and I will explain this later. But let's first add and get and set our health, which is a health of 1. So do once we have 1 life, and it's set over here, and we need to drag off from the get health variable, and we need to add a minus float by float, which we will connect to the set. And it's waiting for a value here, but it is the value of the any damage that it can receive, so that's a good place to connect it to. And then the next thing we need to do is to create a branch from the set blueprint node. And the branch is useful to set the life of our character as alive, and false as in it's still alive. Sorry, the true will be the character is dead, false will be the character is still alive, and we need to update its health. So from the true value, if it's dead, it will be game over, event game over, which we created and is reference to, and then it will target the self. The other one, if it's not dead and it's just taken damage, we need to print a string so that we can see how much life it has compared to the float 1.0 that we created. And this string can't happen all at the same time, so we're going to give it a delay of half a second. When your character takes damage, it doesn't take there is a grace period where it can't take any damage usually in a game. And then we need to update this string from the health system, and it's going to convert it over there, and that looks fine. And from the health set health node, we need to also create a greater equals float to float, which will update the branch and its conditions. And then finally, if it does once, if we take damage once, or we need to reset it so it can take more damage, so we're going to move this over all the way to the reset do once. If you're following, great. If you're finding it hard, please pause the video, and I'm trying my hardest to keep it as small as possible. And this is a bit confusing, it's going through a lot of stuff. You can double click and then move it so we can see the lines more clearly, and it's not a spaghetti mess basically. So let's just go. I'm going to scroll very slowly and explain it all. We can take any damage with this life. If there is an event that takes any damage, it's going to happen once, and it's going to be set and to our health variable, that is the float, and it will be minus. You can only lose life, yeah, when you get damaged. And if there's no more life, you're going to have game over. And if your value is greater than 1, so if your health is at 50%, it will go to false, which will print how much life you have left and get you ready to take more damage in the future. So that's what it means. Hopefully you've done it right. Compile and save, and then Let's see if it works. I'm gonna close this blueprint, and then we are going to press play. So let's go with the enemy first. Notice in the top left I'm taking damage 0.4, 0.2, 1, and then that's it. I've been hit back in the head by the enemy. Let's take a look at the fire. So the fire, I'm receiving on the top left, my life is going down, and then the game ends. So that is a level with 3 different types of hazards that can kill you. Remember, it's up to you to decide the scenario and what kind of hazards these are, or what the story will be. But this is how you would create the systems in Unreal Engine. Good luck.